Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Matt Pulisic, welcome to the Center of the Universe. Appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, where are you from originally, Matt?
Originally from Long Island, New York, a small town called Center Reach.
Long Island's a big place. A lot of people live there. What's the population roughly these days?
Well, I couldn't tell you.
It's got to be millions.
Not
right?
good on my numbers. Probably yes. Yeah.
And when you were a kid,
it's packed. It's just as crowded, then as it is now. I don't think its population has probably changed too much.
And super expensive.
Super expensive. Yes.
What was it like growing up there when you were like 9, 10 years old?
It was great. We lived in a small neighborhood. Back in the day, we were outside playing sports all the time. You can leave your house. Your parents didn't know where you were, and you were safe. You were either playing hockey or basketball or baseball or soccer in the street somewhere or someone's backyard. Gone for hours and hours, and you knew it was time to get home for dinner. As long as you were home for dinner, everything was okay.
Yeah, I failed to mention Silent Rob's with us tonight, and that's how I connected to you, was through Rob Dahl.
Yep.
Rob and I have talked about it plenty of times where it was awesome to just leave the house in the morning
Yep.
and then come back for dinner time and everybody was cool.
Yeah, we did that so many times, and sometimes we did it too much. I remember one time out in my front yard, as a matter of fact, we were playing soccer, and my mother called us in for dinner. And we didn't come in because we kept playing, and she kept calling us, and we didn't come in. And you might get a weird perception of my mother with this one story. She came out with a knife and grabbed the soccer ball and proceeded to try and deflate the soccer ball. But you can imagine it's challenging to put a knife through a ball.
Even a really sharp knife. Yeah.
Yes. So she wasn't successful. But we got her point, and we proceeded to go in the house and finished our game and had dinner.
She definitely made the point.
She made the point.
And
yes.
Did you keep playing games and days afterwards?
We always played. We never stopped playing. So we just made sure we were in the house on time for dinner.
Yeah, I'm glad that story went knife to ball, not knife somewhere else.
Yes.
that would be a very different story.
Yeah.
Very cool. You played soccer in college. We'll come back to that in a little bit.
Okay.
But was soccer your thing from an early age?
I played everything from an early age. I played basketball. I played baseball. We played roller hockey back then, and something called deck hockey, where you just played with sneakers on, and there were competitive leagues.
Oh, really?
Yes, there were. And then I played soccer as well, and kind of stuck with soccer more through high school, and started dropping the other sports, and that's why I continued to play soccer in college. My dad was born and raised in, at the time, what was Yugoslavia, now Croatia. He came in here in his mid-20s, so he kind of was what sparked our interest in soccer, because obviously in Europe that was the number one sport and remains the number one sport today.
By far, that's been true for decades, right?
Yeah, by far.
So it was really the family influence that led you to soccer.
Family influence, yes. And my mother's family was Italian. Her parents were born in Italy. So both Italian and Croatian family members, soccer was kind of a big part of our family heritage.
Your mom born here or born in
She
Italy?
was born in Brooklyn, in Brooklyn, New York, yeah.
So since we're talking about this for posterity, how did your parents meet?
At a dance in New York City. My dad was fresh off the boat, and my mother saw this European guy that she didn't want to have anything to do with. And one thing led to another, and they got married.
Did he speak English at the time?
He spoke broken English at the time, yes.
But he ended up picking it up.
Ended up picking it up a lot better, obviously, later, yeah.
So you were raised by one immigrant parent,
Yep.
and then your mom was born here, but
Yes.
she was raised by immigrant parents.
Correct.
Herself. What was that like growing up with immigrant grandparents and parents?
It was great. Obviously, food was a big part of our family life. Having dinners together, having meals together, having family members together on weekends for dinner, and all the major holidays. You had multiple family members together at somebody's house, and everything revolved around a nice Italian meal.
So it was Italian focused.
It was primarily Italian. The Croatian food it was kind of similar to the Italian food. There was some specific things that my dad preferred, but it was mostly the Italian side that was cooking the food, so that was a good thing.
Croatia is just across the water
Just
there.
across, if you're looking at a map, Italy comes down as a peninsula. You have the Adriatic Sea to the east of that, and then the next coastline is Croatia.
And it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I've been there numerous times. My dad was born and raised on a small island called Olib, O-L-I-B. That island is just off the coast of Croatia in the Adriatic Sea. You can only get there by ferry. We still have a house there today as I speak that my brothers and I and my cousin who's over there own together. It's beautiful.
That's really, really cool.
It is.
Why do most, and my impression could be wrong, but most Americans, when they think of traveling to Europe, they think England, France, Germany, Italy. They don't typically think Croatia. Is there a reason for that?
That I'm not sure, but I do hear a lot of people are starting to hear more about Croatia just because of its beautiful coastline.
Right.
There's some other cities. Dubrovnik is one of them that's on the coast.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Croatia that is just gorgeous. So I think people are starting to, go there more, travel there more. I think maybe when it was Yugoslavia, a little communist control at the time.
Right.
So maybe that was one reason why it wasn't as well traveled. But now,
in war 30-ish years ago.
Yeah. So now it's more popular place to go.
That's really cool that you've been back several times.
Yeah, I have. I took. I went with my dad when I was in middle school the first time. His parents were there. My grandparents, got to see them. They came over here once or twice to visit us, and then took my dad back as he was getting older. He couldn't travel by himself, and it was really, really fabulous to go back there. This island is just gorgeous. You go to this island to do absolutely, absolutely nothing. There are no cars on the island. There are no roads on the island. It started out all dirt paths between the house, and then years later they were able to put some concrete down. So basically it's concrete sidewalks all throughout this island. You walk everywhere you go. There's just a couple hundred homes there. There's probably only about 100 people that live there in the wintertime. But in the summertime, a lot of Croatians who live in the United States, Croatians who live elsewhere, will go there back to their houses that they have and spend the summer there. They built a big pier, and a lot of Italians and Germans that have yachts and big boats will sail up and down the Adriatic in the summers, and they'll dock their boats at our island and spend a few nights there. So it's a lot of fun. There's a few restaurants that open up in the summer.
And so food on the island is all ferried there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. There's people have their own gardens and things like that, but food is mostly brought in.
That sounds extremely relaxing, and it also sounds like it could be fun as well.
It is. It was nice, a lot of fun when I went with my dad, just to see the love that he had for that island, and to see the people that were still living there, their reaction to seeing my dad the first time he stepped off the ferry. It just put a spark in my dad's eyes. As much as he loved the United States, you always love your home. And it was just, I was so proud and happy to see that spark in his eyes. He passed away about 14 months ago.
Oh, wow. Sorry for that.
I have not been back there since he passed away, but I do need to go and check on this house. And I believe it or not, all these years, my wife has not been.
Wow.
And, we've been married 30 years, and my goal is to get her there and see it.
Oh, she'll love it.
Yeah, she'll love it.
I'm surprised she hasn't said, hey, let's go.
Yeah, it's just with the kids growing up, it was just hard to, get the entire family there. And for us to leave the kids, it wasn't, a good thing to do at the time. But now we're looking forward to making that trip.
Did your dad come to the States in his mid-20s because there was just the land of opportunity? That was the idea?
Basically, yes. He had a relative that was here, and he wanted to try and do something more with his life. He ended up doing some university schooling in Zagreb, which is the capital of Croatia, and then finished his schooling. He was an engineer at NYU in New York City.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and worked as a mechanical engineer and a carpenter his entire life.
Wow. Most people that are from that part of the world, Italy, Croatia, and countries that touch those two, New York is the destination almost exclusively.
Yep.
I guess New York has just always had this international fame for being the place you go.
Yeah, I never, my dad had relatives here, and I guess, like you said, that's probably the place that people in Europe know more about, and it's a little easier to get to from Europe as opposed to landing somewhere on the East Coast and then traveling far. So he stayed in New York because of family mostly.
Family, and but New York has always been sort of, people don't call it this, but a microcosm of Europe in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, exactly. So he was in the city, New York City, for a number of years until he met my mom and they married and moved out to Long Island.
Okay.
Years later. So.
A lot of families do that.
Yeah.
Especially
exactly.
first, second generation families.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So soccer, was it something more about soccer than just it was a big thing for your dad? Was there something about the sport itself that really gravitated?
Probably it was something that maybe I excelled at a little bit better than the other sports. So that's probably the reason why I gravitated towards that.
Were you more offense-minded or defense-minded?
More
By the way, I'm out of my depth here. I don't know
That's fine.
about soccer.
That's fine. More offensive-minded. I was playing on the wing, so I was able to use both my left foot and right foot, which is definitely a skill that's needed when you're playing soccer. So I had the advantage of being able to do that fairly well.
And you were playing from a very young age?
From, 8, 9, 10 years old, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine you're pretty fast if you're playing wing on offense.
Well, relatively speaking, I was okay. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
I was a smart player. How about that?
Smart's sometimes better than being
Exactly,
fast. Yeah. Actually, it's more useful most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So you're growing up in Long Island, and by the way, did you spend time doing anything not related to sports or school? Any fun hobbies or interests you had?
No, we would fish. My dad enjoyed fishing growing up on an island. So we had some family members that had boats, and we would go out in the Long Island Sound, between Long Island and Connecticut, and do a lot of fishing. That's one thing that we did up there. There's not a lot of hunting happening on Long Island, at least where I was. So when I came to Virginia and learned how much people hunt, that was very new to me. But we did fish quite a bit.
What did you catch in the Long Island Sound?
A lot of bluefish, blackfish, snapper, which is more like a baby bluefish kind of thing.
Good eating.
Good eating, very good eating. That's all my dad did was bring it home, and if we caught it, we ate it.
So when did you know you were going to go to college?
I ended up going to an all-boys Catholic high school starting in 9th grade. And it was kind of a college preparatory school.
Right.
So they really kind of pushed folks, going to get an advanced degree, going away to college. Right before my senior year of high school, I broke my leg playing soccer in the summer. And back then, they played high school soccer in the fall. So I missed my senior year of high school soccer. So I kind of had to recruit myself. There was a kid from my school that went to Randolph-Macon a year ahead of me and played lacrosse down here. So I wanted to go away from home. I wanted to go to a small school. Back then, Randolph-Macon was Division II in soccer, so it was a little higher level. I visited the school, visited the campus, kind of liked what I saw, and here I am.
The campus, relative to what it's like now, has to seem tiny.
Night and day difference.
It's kind of exploded the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, what the administration has done on campus has been fabulous. I'm very involved in the school, and what they've done, it's just a beautiful campus, the buildings that they've added, the fields that they've changed their location, and adding turf fields, it's night and day compared to what it was when I was there.
I mean, the football stadium is unbelievable relative to what you saw when you went there. It was like big metal bleachers on one side of the field.
No, I can't believe that there are many Division III football stadiums that look nicer than what we have. especially now with the new Duke Hall that's being built. The field is going to be surrounded on 3 sides by a building, and it just makes it look kind of more of a smaller, close environment.
Kind of like Duke basketball in their place. Yeah. That's I'm ashamed to admit this. I've lived very close to Randolph-Macon most of my life. I have not been to a football game since they built all of that.
Yeah, well, you should go. You should try and go. Definitely catch one of the Hampton-Sydney games. That's probably the most exciting of all of them. So
yeah, and we've had Pedro on the podcast.
You have, I'm sure.
I think I owe it to Pedro to go to at least one game.
Yeah, you probably should. Don't tell him you haven't been to a game.
Yeah. Well, not one of his games. I went way back in the day. Yeah. Back probably when you were there. Yeah. We've mentioned Randolph-Macon a couple times. I'd be remiss. Normally at this point, we would say, hey, do you know Barclay DePriest?
Of course. Everybody knows Barclay DePriest.
Is she like the everybody's mom kind of thing on campus?
She appears to be. She knows everybody and knows a lot about everybody. And she knows a lot about everything that's happening on that campus. If there's something you need to know, you ask Barclay.
She always makes me smile when I see her, too.
Yeah,
that's the other thing about her.
She's fabulous.
Yeah,
she's fabulous.
She's a great lady. Rob and I were very fortunate to grow up. Like, we knew her when we were 5-6 years old.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so soccer, you said you recruited yourself. You knew a guy that was already down here, so you said, hey, I'll go check it out because he's told me good things about it?
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah. I wanted to go away from home, like I said, go somewhere small. I think I was with my mom and another friend of hers and their daughter, and we did a few trips, visited some schools down in the south, Elon and High Point, stopped by Duke University as well, and then we stopped at Randolph-Macon just briefly just to look at it.
Because it was on the way kind of thing?
Because it was on the way kind of thing, and then that's when I started talking to people on campus, the coach specifically, about coming down on a recruiting trip. I do have a funny story about my recruiting trip, if you don't mind sharing
please.
it. So this was February of my senior year of high school, which was February 1983. And I was planning on taking the train from Penn Station, New York City, down to Richmond. The train station in Ashland wasn't open at the time.
Staples Mill Station was where it was.
The Staples Mill Station.
Yep.
So I took the Long Island Railroad into Penn Station, and as this was going on, a snowstorm started. And I'm down in Penn Station, and it's snowing like crazy. And I get word, and this was before cell phones, so I must have called my mother or something. And she's telling me that the soccer coach, Helmut Werner.
That's right. I've not heard that name in a long time.
Coach Werner had called her and canceled the recruiting weekend because Richmond area was getting dumped on. The entire East Coast was getting dumped on with snow.
I remember this story.
Okay. So now I'm basically getting on the train. So somehow, I forget the specific details, but now I'm on the train. And there were like 3 train loads of people. 3 different trains were heading south. But it ended up 2 of them were canceled. So it was 1 train load of people on 3 train loads of people on 1 train heading south. So it was packed. Okay. I had a stand. All right. So finally, after about 10 hours or so, I arrived in Richmond. And it was a slow ride because we had to stop constantly.
Because of the
snow.
Yeah.
Because of the snow. It was miserable. It was one of the worst days of my life at that time. I get to the train station in Richmond on a Friday night, planning on leaving return trip on Sunday. I'm at the train station on Friday, and I said, I am never coming to this place again in my life. I'm going to sit in the train station on Friday and sleep here until Sunday and go back on Sunday. I'm sitting there in the train station, and some random girl comes up to me and says, are you a recruit? And I never thought of myself as that, but I put 2 and 2 together. And she's like, Randolph-Macon? And I said, yes. She's like, come with me. My boyfriend's out in the car. Her boyfriend was on the soccer team. They were picking me up. So I went in their car, and we drove from Staples Mills to Ashland. And I've never saw more snow in my life because it was not plowed.
Right.
There was snow everywhere.
There were 3 plows in Richmond at the time. Yeah.
There was snow everywhere. It was unbelievable. So I finally get to campus, and they brought me to the Theta Chi house, and here I am. There's a bunch of guys sitting in the TV room, hanging out, relaxing, and so that was the start of my weekend. Played a little soccer, indoor soccer with some of the guys, met the coach briefly, and here I am, still in Ashland. So that's how that started out.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was, 38, 39 years ago.
Something like that, yeah, a long time ago.
That's a great story.
Now I live and work in Ashland, and I'm probably going to be here the rest of my life.
Yeah, Ashland's a special place. You've landed in a very good place.
My wife and I know that. This is our home.
Yeah, so the normal train ride takes about 6 hours when there's no snow.
Yeah, it was miserable. I think the first 2 hours I sat in the bathroom because it was the only seat there was available. I felt guilty with people jiggling the door. I finally decided to get out and let people use the bathroom.
Well, I was going to say, 3 trainloads of people on one train, that probably felt like you were on the New York subway.
Exactly.
But for 10 hours.
Yeah. It was miserable. I really wanted to go home.
But it got turned around. Do you remember the young lady and her boyfriend? Do you remember their names?
The gentleman on the team, his name is Jeff Schellenberger. When I was a freshman, he was a senior. And he is, to this day, one of my best friends. He was just at my house last weekend visiting me.
That's super cool.
Yeah. His girlfriend at the time is not his wife now, so probably should not say her name, even if I could remember it. I don't remember it.
Yeah, we'll go with you don't remember it. All right, so you ended up coming down to Randolph-Macon because you had that weekend ended up being sounds like a great experience. And what was it like coming to Randolph-Macon as a freshman?
Honestly, it was very different. There were some things I didn't expect. When I grew up in Long Island, New York, we learned about the Civil War for about 2 or 3 days in 4th grade, and that was all we ever talked about it. And I came down here, and people are talking about North versus South. We were having contests on the soccer practice field, and it was all the guys from the North versus all the guys from the South.
Was it a pretty even split?
Yeah, I think we had to count Maryland. There was some argument whether the guys from Maryland were from the South or the North. They threw them into the North just to make sure the North had enough guys. But,
okay.
So the whole North versus South thing and Civil War thing was a big surprise for me. I was just surprised at how important that was to some people, surprised at how some people couldn't let it go. So I had to be careful, things I said, because obviously I kind of disagreed with some of the beliefs that the Southern people had, but I just kind of kept my mouth quiet. The other thing is I'm Catholic, and that's kind of a big part of my background, and I felt like I was a minority being Catholic, and people kind of looked down on me at the time for being Catholic. I think it's much better now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Much better now. That's really not an issue now. That kind of surprised me in Long Island for the most part. You were either Catholic or Jewish. There weren't too many other.
Not a lot of Baptists. Not
a lot of Baptists there.
Yeah.
So those two things, the North-South thing and then the Catholicism thing, was kind of a big surprise. But obviously it was not bad enough, significant enough for me to want to turn around and go home.
Mostly words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Rob and I knew one Catholic, Coco. Maybe two families that were Catholic. Mm-hmm. Today, I'm now married to a Catholic from Jersey, Italian Catholic at that.
Exactly. Well, good.
and my kids are Catholic.
Well, good.
Yeah. The South versus North thing, I think it's mostly out of the fact that most people in the South, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people in the North, that they don't really leave their own communities. They weren't very worldly, so they just knew what had been taught in school or what their friends were talking about, what their parents were talking about, and that was their worldview, and it was not informed by outside influences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, and I think we actually live where things happened, where battles occurred, where the war took place. Not a lot happened on Long Island, as far as I know. So
I don't think anything happened on Long Island.
Yeah. So I think that was a little different.
Yeah, you went to college 20-minute drive away from the capital.
Yeah.
But to your point, we were by the time you went to Randolph-Macon, we were 5 or 6 generations past that dark part of our American history. So I wish people had moved on. But there's still people that are not super worldly about it. But the good news is they're a much smaller entity than they were back then.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So you were going to school. Did you know what you wanted to do in school? When you were...
I always knew that I had interest in like anatomy and physiology. I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to put that together. As a couple of years went by, I thought maybe I would get into athletic training, where you work specifically with high school or college teams or professional teams. And then my senior year at Randolph-Macon, during J-term, I did an internship in a physical therapy clinic and realized that this is something that I can do that involves anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, sports medicine, but I can also have a little bit more of a life on the weekends and maybe at night where I'd be allowed to more easily have a family and get involved in my kids' activities and coaching and things like that. So when I did that internship, it kind of opened my eyes to physical therapy and kind of sparked my interest in that.
You said J-term. Most people don't know what that means. I happen to know what it means, but could you describe J-term?
So at Randolph-Macon, there's the fall semester, starting Labor Day through Christmas. And then in the spring semester doesn't start till like the second week in February. And during the month of January, during 4 weeks, each student will take one class, and they'll have that one class 5 days a week. It's a 2-hour class for the most part, and that covers that 1 month's time, covers an entire semester's worth of work.
And that's a 3-credit course.
It's a three credit course. So Randolph-Macon kids typically take 4 in the fall, 1 in J-term, and then 4 classes in the spring. But it's also a good opportunity for students to do internships.
Right.
Like I did. Students will also do study abroad during J-term too. It allows a good time for that.
And allows them to focus on one thing during
On one
J-term.
class, exactly.
Yeah, and it actually led you to what you did as a postgrad.
Yeah, internships are fabulous, and we recommend that for all the students. I have every semester, not just J-term, but first and second semester, I have students in my clinic. Randolph-Macon students doing internships. But J-term is a good time to just focus on that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It makes you wonder why other schools haven't adopted that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's worked well for Randolph-Macon. Maybe sets them apart a little bit from other schools.
And they've had it for a really
forever.
long time.
Yeah, forever. Back when my first 2 years at Randolph-Macon, it was May term. And then my junior year, they switched it to J-term. I think it ended up being a little bit too much play term because the weather was so nice.
Right.
So they switched it to J-term.
That was a good move.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned Helmut Werner's name earlier. Tell me your recollections of Helmut.
Coach Werner was a fabulous soccer coach. He really did a good job at evaluating the teams that we were going to play and preparing for those teams specifically. So I really liked the way he did his game preparation. He was demanding, but he knew what he was doing. He was very loyal to the program, and his players were very loyal to him.
He was there a long time.
He was there a long time. He was, I forget exactly, but when I was there, he was coaching there longer than, I was in my 20s. He was longer than I was alive at the time. And I think it might be in the 40-year range, something like that he coached.
Did he do other things on campus, or was he the full-time soccer coach?
He was full-time soccer coach, but I think earlier on the coaches had some other responsibilities, like teaching a phys ed class. So I know he had to do some physical education kinds of things. I think at some point he had a position, his title was athletic director, maybe for a few years.
Okay, that's right. He was the AD. Yeah.
But primarily men's soccer coach.
So 83, you graduated in 80.
High school in 83,
In 80.
graduated Randolph-Macon 87.
So from 83 to 87, where did the soccer team play their games?
We played, it was called Blinko Field. So the last dorm, the one-story dorms that we used to call the motels back in the day, the very last one closest to the school board, Hanover School Board, that's called Bennett Dorm. If you walk out that door across the street, you would have walked into the goal, one
Okay.
of the goals.
Gotcha.
So now it's kind of, they redesigned that and they moved that street. I forget the name of that street that's behind the baseball field.
Right.
That street actually used to be maybe 100 yards south, further south than what it is now, near Andrew's dorm,
Right.
the dorm that's on that one end zone of the soccer field.
Where do they play now? The soccer
They
team.
play on the other side of the railroad tracks, across the tracks near the women's softball field. There's a soccer field.
Past the old tennis courts.
Correct.
Where it's basically a
Yes.
parking lot now where the tennis courts are.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's where they play.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The athletic program across all of the sports at Randolph-Macon since the mid 80s to now, it has to be an insane journey to think about.
Yeah, they've really, the administration has done a lot to support athletics. Not only the administration, but the alumni. The alumni are really good at donating to the athletic club, the Yellow Jacket Club, and that financial support that goes to the Yellow Jacket Club provides a significant amount of funds to support all men's and women's programs.
Yeah, the alums are very, very loyal.
They are, and I forget I should know this, but Randolph-Macon is like in the top 25 in the country for percentage of alumni support. So it's a very high number of alumni who financially support the college.
That's got to be a huge point of pride, and I imagine the president of Randolph-Macon mentions that from time to time.
I think he does use that quite a bit.
As he should.
Yes.
As he should. All right, so you're looking forward to graduation. What do you plan to do after you graduate?
When I was at Randolph-Macon, you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
So the clinic that I did my internship in offered me a job as a physical therapy aide. So my plan was to take a gap year before I went on to physical therapy school. So I worked at that clinic. So that was one advantage. Another advantage of the internship, that it provided me with a job right out of college. So I moved to Richmond. The clinic was in the West End, so over near Regency Mall, that area.
Yep.
So I lived over there, worked at that clinic for a year, applied to physical therapy school, was accepted to the program at MCV, VCU, and started the following year, went to physical therapy school at VCU.
It's VCU now. Back then it was MCV.
Yeah, I still make that mistake. When I have a VCU student, I usually will introduce them as an MCV student to my patients. And the VCU student looks at me like, what are you talking about? So
Yeah, it's crazy to think that's younger folks don't even know
They
that
don't.
was a thing.
yeah, they don't know that at all. It never comes up. It's always VCU.
Yeah, there's some story behind the president of VCU, and MCV's always been part of VCU.
Correct.
They just had
Yes.
their own name, and they had
Correct.
pride in their own name. But there was a bad accident at the Richmond NASCAR race, and the driver went to MCV, and they said CNN was reporting on it, and there was another event like the DC Sniper, that whole thing, and the guy that was shot in Ashland ended up going to MCV, and they said they were at the UVA Medical Center.
Oh, really?
And it drove the president of VCU crazy because that's it. We are calling it VCU from here on out.
Yeah, they've changed it a while ago, so it works for them.
Yeah, VCU's got a good brand name, and
Yeah.
they've done a lot themselves.
Yep.
For sure. What was your experience like going to MCV at the time?
It was great. The program was hard, but it was easier for me because I enjoyed it, and I could see that there was a goal at the end of the program. So very challenging, but I enjoyed every minute of it.
What about it specifically did you really enjoy?
It was fun being in that medical environment, knowing that I was getting into the medical field. It was interesting to me to see all the different fields of medicine, the pharmacy school, the dental school, the medical school, and being around all those, medical practitioners. I just enjoyed being in that environment.
Yeah, there's something about understanding how the human body works.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to me. There weren't too many physical therapy programs at the time that had cadaver anatomy. So we were very fortunate in the physical therapy program to have an entire semester of cadaver anatomy. So that, really helped give you a better understanding of what you were doing by going through those labs.
So when you were at some point during your time at MCV, what was your idea for what we're going to do after school?
I always had interest in orthopedics and sports medicine. So the clinic that I did my internship in specialized in orthopedics and sports medicine. I developed a great relationship with the owner. The owner was a physical therapist. It was a private practice. I was very fortunate during my schooling at MCV that he offered me a job. So he told me when I graduate that I can come back and have a job as a physical therapist there. So I was very lucky knowing when I was in school that I was going to have a job waiting for me when I was done.
It's a good feeling.
It was great. So I ended up working at that clinic. It was called Tuckahoe Physical Therapy. They had a very close relationship with the doctors at Tuckahoe Orthopedics. The doctors used to own the physical therapy practice, but then my friend, the physical therapist, bought the practice from them, and he was the owner, but they still had a very good professional relationship. So for me, early in my career, I worked there for 10 years. I was able to develop a fabulous relationship with many, many orthopedic surgeons, and that really, really helped propel my career.
In what ways did it propel your career?
They saw what skills I had, and they had great comfort in referring their patients to me.
Okay.
So that is the primary way, but then also just the educational opportunities that I had to learn from these guys really helped me allow me to do a much better job with my patients.
So as a physical therapist, especially if you have your own clients, you're an entrepreneur, whether you intended to be or not, effectively, or did you not feel like an entrepreneur early on when you were in your 20s and 30s?
Well, when I was working at Tuckahoe Physical Therapy, I didn't necessarily, feel like an entrepreneur. There's a lot of risks that you take when you're an entrepreneur. I didn't have some of those risks. A lot of pressures that I didn't have. My primary concerns at that time was just trying to be the best physical therapist I could be and learn and figure out the best ways to help my patients. So I think that really helped me to where I am today. So the first 10 years, it was primary patient care was my primary concern. And then when I went out on my own, I still had to worry about patient care, but I was able to, take on some other responsibilities as a business owner.
All right, we'll come back to the business aspect. When you and I are saying the term physical therapy, for you, did that mean every form of physical therapy, or was there a focus for you?
For me, it was only the orthopedics and sports medicine, outpatient orthopedic and sports medicine. There are different areas of physical therapy. My wife is a pediatric physical therapist. Her patients are 0 to 12 months old.
Oh, wow.
So very, very different population than what I'm treating. I could not do what she does, nor could she do what I do.
So when you say orthopedic, does that mean joints?
It means joints, musculoskeletal problems. So anything from head to toe, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, post-operative care, shoulder surgery, rotator cuff repair, knee surgery, ACL, things like that. So any musculoskeletal condition that a patient may have, we are well trained to take care of that.
So post-injury, post-surgery, or just random pain, unexplained the cause sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point did you know you wanted to start your own business?
When I was, those first 10 years I was working for my friend, kind of that, last couple of years working for him, he was getting to a point to where he was going to sell his business. He was such a great friend and a mentor of mine. He kind of suggested and kind of pushed me to open my own business. He gave me the confidence to do that and thought I'd be successful at it. I trusted him from day one, and so I took him up on it. And 10 years into it, I decided at the time that he sold to go ahead and start my own business. It was as good a time as any to do it.
Yeah. Did you say his name earlier?
I did not. His name is Joe Suter.
Okay. Is Joe still around?
Joe's still around. He lives in Richmond. We talk every month or two. He's retired and still a mentor to this day.
Lifelong friend and mentor.
Lifelong friend, family friends. His wife, my wife, we're friends. We get together. Great person. There are 3 people in the world I owe my life to. It's my parents and Joe Suter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's you're saying a lot there. With
that. He knows that. I've tried to tell him that, and hopefully he hears this someday.
Yeah, it's important for people to know the kind of impact they're having on other people. Yes. It sounds like Joe had a tremendous impact on you.
Tremendous, yeah. And I've tried to do the same for physical therapists younger than myself that I've kind of mentored along the way. So he's set a good example for me.
We'll have to make sure Joe listens to this.
Yeah, hopefully.
What did you enjoy more, the actual physical therapy or running a business? I think I know the answer to this
The
question,
actual physical therapy. Yeah. In the beginning, I was treating patients 40 hours a week. I opened, my first office was in Richmond on Cutchow Avenue, Richmond Physical Therapy. Took me a while to come up with that name, but I finally did.
Use my naming convention, yeah.
So I opened that in October of 2000. I was in the clinic by myself. I was going out marketing every doctor I knew. For 10 years I had seen patients from a number of doctors, so I went to them and I said, hey, look, I'm still working. I'm just at a different location. If you have a patient, you think they can use my help, send them my way. So over time that grew and grew and grew, and I hired a few more therapists, and I think at one point we probably had 4 of us. In 2005 I just decided to open a clinic in Ashland, but let me step back. So when I was working for Joe, he knew my ties to the Ashland area and Randolph-Macon, so he opened a clinic in Ashland. And we were in the Henry Clay Shopping Center. Mm-hmm. There's a physical therapy clinic there now as we speak. I actually opened that clinic and designed that myself. Okay. So it was Tuckahoe Physical Therapy back around 1995 or 96. Let me take a step back even further. It's even funnier. The very first clinic that Joe and I opened, he owned, was in Trackside Grill. Mm. So if you walk in Trackside and you make a left to go to the bathroom, you walk down that ramp, that little section there was my very first physical therapy clinic that I had in Ashland. So you can imagine, Rob knows how big the clinic I have now is. Compare the size of that place at Trackside to what I have in Ashland. It's been tremendous growth.
The rest of that building, was it being used for something else?
Well, the rest of the building used to be a gym. I don't know if you guys remember this.
I do remember that.
Workout Wonder.
I remember
gym.
the guy who owned Workout Wonder. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but I remember the character.
I know his name, the character. Good person. So he had some exercise equipment that our relationship was that I can use some of that equipment with my patients. Mm. So I was in that gym, gym, Workout Wonder. And then we moved over to the Henry Clay Shopping Center, and the gym was in the shopping center, and I had a little bigger piece of the gym. And then we went out on our own and moved a couple doors down to where that other physical therapy clinic is today.
Okay.
So I was there for a few years until 2000, until my boss Joe sold the clinic, and that's when I went out, opened my office in Richmond in 2000. And then in 2005, I missed Ashland. I lived up here. I missed treating the Randolph-Macon kids. I still saw some of them, but it was difficult for them to drive to Richmond. So in 2005, I opened Ashland Physical Therapy.
Wow.
In the location in the Ashland Hanover Shopping Center, where I am today.
That's you were taking me back. That was nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
The workout wonder guy. What's his name?
Kurt.
Yeah, Kurt.
Kurt. Drawing a blank on his last name.
Yeah, he was a big guy physically, and he was a big character too.
Correct. You're 100% correct.
Well, that building has been used for all kinds of things. I think it was a 5 and dime when Rob and I were kids, and then
wasn't it a movie theater originally?
Yeah,
Something
like that. Something crazy. Yeah. Lots of good uses though.
Yeah, every time I go into trackside, it brings back memories.
Oh, it would have to, right?
Yeah.
Because they just flood back in every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so you mentioned brothers earlier. How many brothers do you have?
I have 2 brothers, one older and one younger.
Okay, so you're the middle.
I'm the middle.
And no sisters.
No sisters.
So your older brother, did he like rough you up growing up?
Yes, we all roughed each other up, but it was all fun. We never really had any significant issues with one another. We were pretty close-knit family.
And pretty close in age too.
Older brother is 4 years older. Younger brother is 3 years younger.
Okay.
So close enough.
Yeah, pretty good at range between the three of you. That's awesome. Yep. Are they up in Long Island still?
No. So the younger one ended up moving to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to play professional soccer. The older one was working in New York City and had enough of the city. So he moved to Harrisburg to be near his brother and saw that it was a little nicer area, at least not city-like.
Right.
He was kind of more in the suburbs. So the 2 of them were in Harrisburg, but the younger one has now moved to Florida.
So if there are people out there listening that are thinking about physical therapy, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them to work hard in their undergraduate years, try and major in some type of challenging science courses, and get the best grades possible. You need to really, really get as many A's as possible because it's very challenging to get into these programs these days.
Super competitive.
Super competitive.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about the business side? What would you tell them about the business side?
I would do it exactly the way I did it. I think you need to get yourself established as a physical therapist first. I think you need to develop relationships in the community. And then whenever you feel like you've developed enough relationships and you've learned some business things, then you can take the plunge and try and open your own practice.
I apologize for that distraction. That's my puppy upstairs scratching the floor.
That's okay.
All right, so you have your father. Well, you said you've been married 30 years. How did you meet your wife?
I met her in physical therapy program at VCU. So when I was, it's a long story, but I'm not sure how much time we have.
No, you're good.
I'll go ahead and share. So I graduated from Randolph-Macon with a bachelor's in biology. When I went to physical therapy school back in the day, the physical therapy degree was a bachelor's degree. So I went to VCU and got my bachelor's in physical therapy. So I had a second bachelor's. My wife graduated from the University of Connecticut in 4 years with her bachelor's in physical therapy. So she went on to get an advanced master's degree in pediatric physical therapy at VCU. So she graduated from UConn in '88. I graduated from Randolph-Macon in '87, but she already had her physical therapy degree. So she was at VCU getting an advanced master's, while I was at VCU getting my second bachelor's in physical therapy. So somebody that I knew that was taking some classes with me was friends with her in the graduate program. And this particular friend of hers introduced us.
Okay.
So
And you haven't looked back since?
Haven't looked back since. My wife is the best person in the world.
Yeah, that's really cool.
She's the best.
And she loves Ashland too.
She loves Ashland. She has become an Ashland person. She's become a Randolph-Macon person. This is her home.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, actually.
It's fabulous, yeah.
All right, so you obviously orthopedic and sports focus for your PT work, but is there something within that? Because you've written articles Is there a deep expertise within?
I mean,
those?
I feel my expertise is more treating extremities, shoulders, knees, hips, ankles, elbows, those kind of things. I think that's probably what I'm a little more well known for in the community.
Okay. Not to get too specific here, but if I have really bad hip pain, what would you tell me?
I would tell you to either, if you want, go to your physician and get yourself evaluated. You can come directly to a physical therapist. In the state of Virginia, we have what's called direct access, which means any consumer is allowed to go directly to a physical therapist for evaluation and treatment. So I would tell you, come to my clinic. Either myself or one of the therapists in our clinic could evaluate you. And we are good enough to realize things that are beyond our control, beyond our abilities. And I would tell you, if I thought it was something that I couldn't handle, I would tell you which doctor that I would recommend that you go to for further evaluation. If it was something I could handle, then I would go ahead and recommend that I treated you.
Okay, very cool. Are you full-time now treating people?
I am treating patients 30 hours a week now.
You're living your best life, right? Because you enjoy doing that.
I love what I do. So maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but so I owned Ashland Physical Therapy for 16 years, owned Richmond Physical Therapy for 19 years, but the way things overlapped, I own my own practice for 21 years. For about 16 years, I had 2 clinics. The Richmond office I sold in 2019 to one of my physical therapists, Jeff Gunther, who's actually also a Randolph-Macon graduate. So I sold Richmond PT to him, and he is still running that practice successfully today. When I sold it in 2019, I then worked full-time in the Ashland office. I continued to see patients 30 hours a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I took care of all the administrative stuff. This past July, I was approached by a big corporation called Pivot Physical Therapy. They wanted to purchase my practice, and long story short, they made me an offer that I thought was going to be beneficial to me and my staff, and I sold the practice to them on July 30th. So the deal for me was that I can continue to treat patients 30 hours a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and still do the things I do at Randolph-Macon, still do some the marketing things I do with a specific journal club with some doctors, and that's what I'm doing today.
And when a company like Pivot comes in, when they start talking to you, they are interested in your client base and your staff and the reputation of the staff and the clinic itself?
I don't like to say too many good things about myself, but I think we have a pretty good reputation in town. We're a very busy, profitable clinic, but not just that, we have very, very good physical therapists that had a very high success rate with the care that we provided, and they saw that, they knew that, and they wanted to be involved and purchase us. So they approached me. I have 4 kids. None of them are becoming physical therapists. So at some point when you're a practice owner, there needs to be an exit strategy. I was getting a little older, and I needed to start thinking about my future and how much longer I was going to do this. And I felt like with the offer they made me, who knows if that opportunity was going to be around a couple of years from now. So I felt like I had to jump on it and take it. And we're about 9 months into it so far, maybe a little less than 9, maybe 7, 8 months, and it's going about as well as it could be going.
That's great. So you feel like your staff is taking care of your PT guys are taking care of.
I made sure when I negotiated this deal that the staff was going to be taken care of at least equal, if not better, to what I was able to do for them. And so far, that's true.
Yeah, and hopefully that persists.
Hopefully it stays that way.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to pivot awkwardly
Okay.
to a question we tend to ask towards the end.
All right.
We have an occasional co-host who's not here tonight. His son had a baseball practice or something. And his question is, you're a talk show host for the first time, and you're in charge of everything. But primarily, you get to decide who's going to be your guest on that talk show. There's going to be a male guest, a female guest, musician or musical group, and if you like comedy, you can give us a comedian. These folks can be alive or dead. They can be famous, not famous. They can be people that are from your life, or just people that maybe not famous, but you're very interested in talking to them, and maybe they become famous because they're on your talk show.
So that's quite a few people, I think.
It's at least 4.
At least 4.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
You can start it anywhere you want.
You can make a challenge on me to think of one. So a male, a female, a musician, and a comedian.
Yeah, and you can skip the comedian if you're not a big comedy fan.
Okay. Let me think here. So let's think of a male.
Be alive or dead.
Alive or dead? I'm sure I'm going to probably think of 5 real quickly when I go home tonight. But now, a male that I would like to be a host to. I would always, I would like to talk to the Pope. If I could get the Pope sitting next to me and just kind of hear his wisdom about life. I think that would be kind of a fabulous person to speak to.
And a rare opportunity,
and
too.
A very rare opportunity. I think as interesting they are, they're just normal people, too. So it'd be kind of nice just to kind of sit back and have a chat with the Pope.
Okay.
Or any Pope.
Yeah.
Female. I'm not sure. My mom just passed away last week.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a very hard week.
I can imagine.
For us, and I would love to have my mother sit here and just hold her hand and talk to her one more time.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's kind of an easy answer there.
That's the only answer, I think.
Yeah. It was a surprise, and I didn't get to really say goodbye to her, so I wish I could have her here for even just a few minutes to do that.
Very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Musician, I'm not a big music person, but I might be able to think of somebody. Maybe I'll come back to that. Comedian, I'm not sure on the comedian end of things.
You can just go with a third guest period, somebody you would just enjoy talking to, and you can skip the music and the comedian part.
I don't know. That's a tough one. Maybe ask me another question, and
I'll
come back to it.
Yeah, it's all. We can come back. We can circle
Yeah.
back. The next question is about your family. You have 4 children.
I do.
Tell us about your kids.
My oldest 2 are twin boys. They're going to be 28 soon. Thomas is married, just got married in September to his college girlfriend, Molly. They both went to William & Mary, and they're big William & Mary people, which is good for them. They're both very smart. He has a master's in data analytics that he received from SMU. She has a master's in some math kind of stuff, and she's...
so they're both hardcore.
They're both
math.
hardcore math people. He is in the process of changing jobs as we speak. He does data analytics for Cigna Health Insurance, but will be starting a new job shortly. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Huddle. Maybe Rob has Huddle. People may know it as they do recruiting videos for like high school athletes, but supposedly they do a lot more than that. They do a lot of data analytics for college teams and professional teams, and they have offices all over the world. So he's going to be doing data analytics for Huddle. He's loves sports, played baseball at William & Mary, and always wanted to get back into the sports world. So this is his way to do that. His twin brother Joseph has a house here in Ashland, and he is a Hanover sheriff's deputy. And does that. He's been doing that for 4 or 5 years. or so. He's works out at American Family, and he's a good son. He lives nearby, so he's always around the house, walking in our pantry, eating our food, and sitting on our couch watching TV, but taking care of his mom and dad. He's a good kid.
Are your twins fraternal or identical?
They are fraternal.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fraternal. They're very close. They've been close since day one. So it's really nice to see that. And then William is going to be 24 shortly. He plays professional soccer in the MLS, Major League Soccer, here in the United States.
Oh, wow.
He plays for Austin FC, team out of Texas. He's a goalkeeper. He went to Duke University and played soccer there 4 years. He just recently got loaned to North Carolina FC, which is in the next division, the second division. So that's something that happens a lot in soccer. These clubs, when they have players that they sign, if they don't, especially with goalkeepers, there's a goalkeeper ahead of him. And when you're the number one goalkeeper, you play all the time. So the number two never really plays. And so they've got 3 or 4 goalkeepers. He was with Austin all of last year. They kept him in Austin. He trained every day. But this year they wanted to send him out on loan to get games. So he's going to be down in Raleigh, playing down there.
So closer.
Closer, which is great for us. We'll be able to see him play. They actually come up here and play the Richmond Kickers this summer. So we'll get to see him play.
That's great.
Here in Richmond. So he's doing that. That's what he always wanted to do. He went to college to play soccer, and he's one of the few people that are actually doing their job and what they went to college for.
Yeah.
He wanted to be an athlete, and that's what he's doing.
Good for him.
So he's great. Then my fourth child, my daughter Allison, she goes to JMU. She's a senior there. She's staying a 5th year to get her master's in teaching. Special education is her primary emphasis.
Okay.
And she just loves working with that population, has worked with that population for a number of years now, and does a fabulous job at it. So she's on her way to doing good things with that population.
Takes a very special person to do that kind of work.
Yeah, she does a good job at it.
Yeah.
So that's the 4 of them. Yeah.
That's awesome. So they're all out of the house.
Yeah, besides the last one in college, she kind of is around, but for the most part, at least the 3 boys are on their own payroll, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, when the 4th one's on her own payroll, that's going to be a big day for you and your wife.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
That's fantastic. All right, last thing, and you don't have to come back to the guest. Silent Rob is signaling something. Hold on.
And my wife, her name is Jennifer. Okay, we can't forget the wife.
Thank you, Silent Rob.
Like I said earlier, Jen is a physical therapist specializing in pediatrics. She works at VCU a couple days a week. She will see patients, outpatients in our clinic here in Ashland as well. She keeps herself busy with that. She's very, very involved with a lot of church-related things and kind of always doing something for somebody in the community.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you go to a lot of sporting events?
I pretty much go to everything. I'm on the sideline of all the football games, part of the sports medicine staff, so I'm right there for that. And then I go to games every weekend and during the week. I go to the training room a couple days a week. I see a lot of the Randolph-Macon athletes in my clinic, so I have to keep in touch with the athletic trainers and communicate with them on a regular basis about how their athletes are doing. So I'm on campus quite a bit.
And you are basically at every home game you can possibly go to for as many sports as you can fit into your schedule, but you're not traveling with these teams.
I don't. Years and years and years ago, even before Pedro was coaching, I used to travel with the football team some, but as my kids started to get into their own activities, that was something that I couldn't do. So I don't travel as much. I'll go to the Hampton Sydney football game. Every now and then I'll go to an away game. But it's mostly the home games that I'm going to.
Cool. What are you and your wife looking forward to with the kids all being on their own payroll soon?
We are looking forward to traveling. we're looking forward to kind of going overseas to Europe and seeing other parts of this country, but we're just looking forward to traveling.
What's the name of the island again?
Olib, O-L-I-B.
You've got to get her to Olib.
That's, we were planning on doing that just prior to COVID. COVID has kind of, put a dent on that, but the plan is to maybe do that soon.
You got to do it soon.
That's the plan.
Sounds magical, man.
It is. That's the plan.
All right, very cool. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you joining us tonight. I learned a lot about you. I learned a lot about physical therapy that I didn't know anything about. My hip question was very selfish.
I kind of figured that.
Yeah, but it was awesome. I hope your kids listen to this. Out of your 4 kids, which ones will naturally listen to this and which ones may not get to it for a while?
I think they all will listen to it. Some of them might be a little more bored than others. I won't say which. I think they've heard these stories before, but I think they'll all listen to it a little bit.
They've all heard the train story?
I'm pretty sure they have.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. I don't mind repeating that one.
Very cool. All right. Well, actually, I'm going to leave with this. Is Randolph-Macon going to win the national championship in basketball this year?
I would like to say yes. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough. There's a lot of pressure on that team. They've been number 1 for a few years now.
They only have 1 loss this season, right?
They only have 1 loss. So there's a lot of pressure on them. I'm hoping they can do it. Josh Merkel is about as good a human being. The head coach, Josh, is about as good a human being as there can be. So I really want it for him and for the guys on the team.
It would be super cool if they could do it. They won one back in the late 70s when they were Division II, I think.
I think they went to the final and lost. So Randolph-Macon
yeah.
has never had a national champion.
How cool would that be?
It'd be fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely pulling for them.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We'll see.
Awesome.
Friday night, 7:30.
Sweet 16.
Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm definitely pulling for them. I won't be there. I think my parents will probably be there.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.